I mean, overall revenue and sales came in above consensus, but you go into this saying this was the first quarterly earnings for SpaceX since they became a public company, and it will be their first earnings call. And there was a lot of acceptance that the consensus numbers out there was a bit of skepticism, right? They're a bit squishy because we don't have a whole lot of contemporaneous data. But it's really interesting, the status quo is still that Starlink is the driver on the top line and also sort of the cash cow. But they really improved the economics of this business in the quarter of, yes, it's a rocket company, but renting compute capacity to other technology companies. That has proved to be a strong business for them. There's a lot of discussion in that in what's a very limited earnings release.
Mandeep, I want to bring you in here. If you were to look at the three different segments, the reportable segments, Ed mentioned the cash cow and in terms of where the revenue is still coming from. In terms of growth, in your view, which segment is the most important?
I mean, they reported a backlog number of $47.5 billion. That tells you most of the backlog is likely coming from AI. And what is not captured in this print is the Anthropic and Google deals that they signed.
Okay. That's what I was going to ask you. When you say a backlog, that means companies like Anthropic and Google coming to XAI, part of SpaceX, and renting compute?
That's right,
okay.
Yes. And in fact, we know some of the deal terms. Anthropic will be paying SpaceX about $1.25 billion a month. So next quarter, when they report, there will be at least $3.75 billion from Anthropic, and another probably $2 billion plus from Google when they report. So $6 billion bump just from these two deals next quarter.
That sounds pretty impressive.
I think so. That's why that backlog number is very important, because in that $47 billion is that Anthropic deal and the Google deal, and there's one more company, I think, Reflection.
Ed, what can XAI offer these firms that Mandeep mentioned that like a Google Cloud, a Microsoft Azure, an AWS, or even a NeoCloud can't offer?
Space that they're not currently using.
So it is it's a commodity.
A little bit. So like in Tennessee, XAI, now SpaceXAI, set up a number of data centers in very quick order. Colossus 1, Colossus 2, and Colossus 3. What was explained to me in great detail by sources is that once they had built all of them, they were like, okay, how do we use this ourselves? And they realized that in Colossus 1, which is a big tin can data center, they had multiple generations of NVIDIA GPUs, all mixed together. Some were Hopper generation, some were Blackwell, some were even as old as the A100 generation. And so they decided the best use of that capacity was to rent it out, with attractive economics for those renting it at a premium, many would say. I think Mandeep's been over that really well in the past. And for them, like, they run it really operationally efficiently. It can be a high margin business, but it was all born out of the fact that for their own models and running them, not just training latest generation models, they couldn't work out how to use that capacity for themselves to best effect.
Yeah, I mean, the worries that we've had, Mandeep, about this company and feeling like we didn't know some things, should investors, I know we never give investment advice, but feel, all right, we're getting more information about the business that we can kind of figure out and cross with kind of where this company's going, the valuation. I mean, the valuation is still a little crazy, right?
It is crazy, but what I think may work in their favor is this is a company that will likely have accelerating top-line growth at least for the next 3 or 4 quarters, with margin improvement. And that is the type of story that investors typically like. I mean, we just saw what Palantir did today, with their quarter, partly because of that accelerating top-line growth. And there is no doubt in my mind, given that $47.5 billion backlog number, SpaceX will have accelerating top-line growth at least for the next 3 quarters.
We're speaking with Mandeep Singh, our Bloomberg Intelligence Global Head of Technology Research. Also with us, Ed Ludlow out there in San Francisco. He's the host of Bloomberg Tech. I want to remind everybody, if you have questions about SpaceX's earnings, the company's report, send us a question, bloomberg.com/askradio. That's Bloomberg.com/askradio. It's only for Bloomberg.com subscribers. You can submit questions for us or for any of our guests this afternoon.
I'm just looking at, you pull up SpaceX, do the ticker, do, CNBN. SpaceX says business growing across all three segments. SpaceX exceeds revenue estimates in the first quarter, first earnings since IPO. SpaceX's first earnings offer a chance to reverse the stock's plunge. That was earlier in the day. Top of mind, Ed, come on back in, because I'm just thinking how much of what we didn't know. So this is kind of our first real picture of a lot of what the business is about. There was speculation certainly coming off the IPO, and there was numbers and there were estimates. But how much of this is like, oh, okay, so this is the business, at least now.
Yeah. So what you can do is you can compare with the backward-looking data we have from the IPO prospectus, the S1, and the amended versions of it. Just the two AI key points, because I think it's really interesting to get Mandeep's take on this, is AI is probably inflecting a little bit faster than the street expected. So the AI revenues are $2.56 billion, right? Compare that to the first quarter, which is data we got in the prospectus, about 800 million. So that's quite a jump sequentially quarter to quarter. And then on an adjusted EBITDA basis, which, let Mandeep answer this one because I know how the street feels on adjusted EBITDA, but AI adjusted EBITDA did turn positive, AI specifically. And so right now, with the knowledge that all of these other business lines are futuristic, orbital data center, the space economy and enterprise AI, what they have done is move pretty quickly on their AI infrastructure business. And, Mandeep's outlined the deals that they did to get there.
Okay, let's just reset here a little bit because we're seeing shares of SpaceX down about 6.5% after the company reported results. Starlink growth continues to be a revenue driver. Shares are slumping though as investors digest this. Mandeep, what's the sort of from a guidance perspective, the expectations about what we'll hear on the call that's different from what's in the press release? Again, first time we've had a call for this company, so we can kind of only go with what Tesla has done in the past. But what do we expect in terms of guidance?
I mean, when I look at the Starlink number, to me, that's slightly missed consensus in terms of number of subscribers. And given we talk about how that's the cash cow that's funding, the other businesses, that is probably the number one question that I feel they're going to get on the earnings call. But along with that backlog, which I think will help them in the upcoming quarters. But clearly that Starlink business was slightly below consensus.